Hello again in anime realm. The story starts with this dude and this chick going on a date. They got this crazy idea to jump into a hardcore river together, tied up and all so they can be together forever. But damn fate pulls a nasty trick on them because out of nowhere, this evil truck kun rolls up, smashing through the forest like a madman and takes them both out. Fast forward a bit, our main man Osamu wakes up, and he's straight up mind blown by what he sees. This fine lady explains it ain't heaven, but she's a guide for peeps like him who end up in this world. She goes by Annette, and she spills that Osamu got chosen and transported to this whole new world. A fearsome dragon flies by, as Annette explains that this world is all dark and messed up, and Osamu's gotta be the hero to bring some damn light to it. But Osamu doesn't see himself as no hero. He was just some regular dude trying to off himself with his girl, and now he's stuck in this strange-ass world. Annette's getting ready to give him some motivational speech to make him want to be a hero, but she's straight up shocked when Osamu does his thing and odds on some poison pills. Annette cleanses his body of the toxins, but Osamu says that she's just bothering him. Annette straight up demands that Osamu become a hero and fulfill his crazy mission of saving this messed up world. But Osamu is just looking for a way to stop living, so he keeps munching on the pills. But Annette reminds him that he's the freaking chosen one. Osamu fires back, saying he never asked to be chosen. But Annette drops the knowledge that Truck Kun is actually a truck from another world that does some selection stuff. Out of all the unhappy people in Osamu's old world, only the ones struck by Otherworld Truck Kun get a chance to redo their lives in this new world. It's like a freaking world transfer service from Annette's world. Getting hit by Truck Kun means he was feeling hella miserable in his old life, so he got this chance in the new world. Osamu finishes off popping some more pills, and he's all pissed, saying that dumb truck messed up the happiest moment of his life, his plan to peace out. He straight up tells Annette they ain't got no right to decide who's unhappy, but from her perspective, she saved him from a life so damn miserable that he was ready to end it all. Annette eventually decides Osamu's whining ain't worth jack, because he's bound to change his tune once he peeps his stats. Every single human brought to her world gets gifted with some crazy superhuman powers. But damn, she's shocked when she finds out Osamu's weak as hell. Dude's got only one measly hit point, and he is also still poisoned even after she detoxed him. Annette straight up can't believe someone could be this weak, so she goes on a desperate search, hoping to find some special skill or badass ability in Osamu. And damn, she's horrified when she discovers he's got absolutely nothing. She's never seen such a weak otherworlder in her life. Sick as a dog, Osamu tries to bounce, but Annette stops him and finally admits he must have ended up in this world by mistake. She figures that he won't be able to survive in this world, and she's shocked when Osamu finally shows a bit of confidence. He straight up tells her that what she just said sounds more like his real life. Osamu explains that he's always been labeled a failure, no matter which damn world he's in. Annette apologizes again for the screw up and asks him to stick around for a bit. This world's mad dangerous, filled with monsters and whatnot, so his life's gonna be over the second he steps outside. But Annette's stunned when Osamu tells her not to sweat it because he's looking for his final resting place anyway. The reason she's so shocked is because Osamu's unlike anyone else she's ever met. Annette used to take pride in guiding otherworlders, getting all hyped up to meet them. But soon she realized how stuck up and full of themselves they were. She felt like all she did was kiss heroes' asses all day, so she shut herself off. But now her whole world's been flipped because Osamu's a whole different breed. Osamu gets ready to step into the dangerous new world, but Annette begs him to at least choose a profession first. Dude straight up declares he doesn't need a profession because he's born a damn writer. And with that, he bids farewell to the girl with the beautiful ears. As he leaves, Annette dramatically declares that she finally gets it. The thing she's been waiting for all along was for this man to enter her life. Outside, Osamu realizes he can't read the writing in this world, but he knows there ain't gonna be any cafes for him to chill at. Suddenly, a voice pops into his head, announcing that he scored 5 experience points for discovering a new area. Osamu wishes that annoying voice would shut up because he's got migraines and all. But then an even louder voice declares that Osamu leveled up to level 2. Just then, a tree comes crashing down, and a girl screams as she gets attacked by a monster. She pleads with Osamu to help her because he's an adventurer, but Osamu just stares at her, thinking about how people in this world got some funky ear shapes. She keeps begging for his aid, but Osamu straight up asks for her permission to write a novel about her. Eventually, Osamu realizes that she actually wants him to save her, so he tells her to hold on a second. He half-heartedly tries to reach out to her, but ends up saying he can't reach. She asks him to use a sword or cast a spell or something, but the monster grabs hold of Osamu too. All he says is that he can't breathe, and the girl explains that the tree is sacking their life force. They only have a few minutes left before their lives are over. But Osamu says that's a damn good news. He finds joy in his final moments and says his goodbyes to the world. The girl begs him not to give up, but Osamu ain't responding at all. She's stunned that her life's gonna end in such a weird way. But she's even more shocked when the tree gets engulfed in darkness and explodes. Osamu, against all odds, is still alive, much to his disappointment. And that voice announces that Osamu dealt 300 damage with his poison. The girl is straight up blown away as this dude, in the midst of this epic adventure, takes down the monster by making it absorb his poison instead of his life force. Osamu levels up to level 3, and the girl wonders if he is poisoning himself. Then she starts wondering why he's fronting like he is weak when he is actually pretty damn strong. But Osamu explains that this kinda crap always happens to him. Dude wants to stop existing, but somehow he keeps surviving. He's tried to off himself to the afterlife 5 times, but it never goes right. At one point, the girl has no clue why he's so down in the dumps, but she's grateful he saved her life, so she thanks him. She offers to take him to her house so he can rest, and he introduces himself. But when Osamu touches her hand, he's reminded of his girl Sachin and wonders if she ended up in this world too. The girl gets all pissed and tells him her name is not Sachin. She tries to drop her real name on him, but Osamu's already daydreaming about Sachin. The girl gets hella frustrated because he's straight up ignoring her, but he got a legit reason. Osamu just found a purpose to live in this new world. He goes over his last memory with his girl and declares that he gonna find Sachin wherever she is in this world. His declaration ain't exactly what it seems because he wanna find her so they can commit double unalive again. Meanwhile, Annette is praying to the god of her world, hoping they protect Osamu. She also wishing to meet him again someday, and her wish comes true when Osamu comes back. She couldn't be happier to see him, but she's straight up shocked when his new cat girlfriend is there too. Annette can't even believe he already has a girl by his side, but she keeps it cool because Osamu has a question he wanna know if Annette met a girl named Sachin. Annette is straight up horrified to hear there's a third woman in the mix. Osamu bounces because Annette got no info on Sachin, but the cat girl reassures him he gonna find her. She wanna swing by the castle town of Roth before hitting her house, but she is shocked when Annette appears, trying to stop them from holding hands. Annette thinking that's some shameless behavior, but the cat just wanna know why Annette tagging along. Annette is too shy to answer, so the cat figures it out she must be in love with Osamu. Of course, Annette denies it, and says it's just her job to protect the weak otherworlder. Being an otherworlder is why the cat realizes Osamu is so damn strong, but Annette says that he is actually weak as hell. The two start arguing about how weak he is, but the cat spills that Osamu killed a monster and saved her life. Annette is horrified because saving her life means they got close, and she starts calling the girl a thieving cat. Right then, Osamu announces he found something dope, a real comfy bed. But it's actually a freaking coffin, and he tells the girls to wake him up when they reach the town. Osamu says goodnight to Annette and Tama, but the cat is all mad because that ain't her name. Osamu was already knocked out though, and Annette shyly points out that he called her the right name. So Annette takes on the task of dragging Osamu in his coffin, but Tama wonders if that really her job as a clergyperson. As they keep walking, Tama's getting fed up with driving that damn coffin around, so she tells Osamu to get out and walk on his own 2 feet. But there's no response, and she starts worrying that Osamu might have actually kicked the bucket somehow. Annette checks his stats, and Osamu seems to be fine, so he's probably just knocked out. They're pretty close to the castle anyways, so Annette asks Tama to suck it up a bit longer so they don't have to wake him up. Meanwhile, inside the coffin, Osamu's peacefully dreaming about his beloved Sachin. And no matter where she is, he's gonna find her so they can both die together. A while later, they finally reach Roth, the castle town. Annette and Tama open up the coffin to let Osamu out. Osamu takes a look around the town, and he's damn sure now that he ain't in the same world no more. But before they do anything else, Annette suggests they head to the castle and have an audience with the king, but they end up leaving the coffin right in the middle of the road. At the castle, King Thomas and his daughter Charlotte are happy to meet them. And since they gotta be dead tired from a long-ass journey, the king offers them all a place to crash in the castle chambers for the night. But before that, he wants to hear some of Osamu's pleasant experiences. Osamu can't think of too many pleasant things to talk about, but he did enjoy that coffin ride here. so he tells the king he's gonna show him what it's like to sleep in a coffin. Out of context, that might sound like a threat and all, but Annette quickly switches gears and compliments Charlotte on how fine she looks. The king mentions that Charlotte's actually getting married soon, so he's looking for some advice about her suitors. Thomas calls for the dudes to be brought in, and that's when we meet the warrior Gomez and the wandering minstrel of love, Otto. Lately, because of the wrath of the demon lord's influence, monster activity's gone through the roof, but Thomas is too damn old to handle it himself. So he decides one of these two fellas is gonna become Charlotte's husband and the next king of Wrath. Problem is, Charlotte ain't too keen on the idea because she ain't picked a husband yet. That's why he's leaving the choice to a bunch of strangers he just met 10 damn minutes ago. He's making them choose between Gomez and Otto to marry Charlotte. But when the choice pops up, Osamu does the smart thing and says he's never met these dudes before. Charlotte's whole future depends on this decision, so it's stupid to trust a bunch of strangers with it. And if he'd do something like this without even thinking twice, then he ain't fit to be king. The king's left in shock, and after saying that, Osamu turns to bounce while Annette and Tama are frantically trying to apologize for Osamu's actions. They try to explain that Osamu's from another world, so he can be a bit blunt sometimes, but the king says it's cool because he ain't the type to hold a grudge, and it seems like Charlotte's taken a liking to him. Later that night, while everyone else is knocked out, Osamu spends his time gazing out the window. So Annette gets up and asks if he's having trouble falling asleep. Osamu tells her he just never sleeps well. Annette wants to seize the moment to learn more about Osamu, so she asks him to spill about Sachin. But then she peeps a tail popping out from under Osamu's sheets. So she yanks off the covers and sees Tama snoozing on Osamu's thighs. She ain't having none of that shenanigans unless she's the one sleeping with Osamu. So she grabs a pillow and smacks Tama to wake her up. Tama defends herself, saying it's chilly and she's part cat, so it's totally normal for her to snuggle up to people for warmth. While Annette and Tama keep going at it over this, Osamu gets up and dips out of the room because of all the ruckus. And as he steps into the hallway, he notices a dope-ass light. So he steps outside to peep the lake, and wouldn't you know it, Charlotte's chilling there too. When she spots Osamu, she invites him to vibe with her and enjoy the lake because it's a beautiful night. Osamu agrees, saying the place is so damn beautiful that it makes him feel like he wants to take a forever dive in the lake. Charlotte's shocked to hear him say that and asks if Osamu's got enough problems to make him wanna off himself. But from what Osamu's seen so far, Charlotte seems like way more trouble than him. After a bit of silence, Charlotte opens up to Osamu, spilling that she can't make up her damn mind about Gomez and Otto. Gomez just got to the castle, but he's already the most dependable soldier they got, and her dad believes in Gomez's strength, so she thinks she should probably go with him. But Otto has been her homie since they were kids, and whenever she felt down, he'd write her a song and play it to lift her spirits. She doesn't know if she should choose a hobby she loves or one who'd be the strongest king for her dad's sake. Osamu chuckles to himself and says Charlotte's hella kind for worrying about her dad's opinion this much. Unlike Osamu, who's tried to cancel his subscription to Life multiple times, always causing problems for his family in the process. But he's never let someone else decide how he's gonna live his life. He thinks Charlotte should make a decision based on what she wants. And to do that, she gotta figure out her true desires. The next day, King Thomas summons Osamu and the crew back to the throne room. He apologizes for the inconvenience, but says he's calling them there because Charlotte's finally made up her mind about who she's gonna marry. He wants them to be witnesses to her choice. Annette is convinced Charlotte's gonna pick Gomez because she's likely to put the kingdom's needs before her own. Tama, on the other hand, thinks Otto's a way better match for her. Thomas tells Charlotte to walk up to the man she's chosen and speak her vows to him. So Charlotte starts walking, but instead of going to Otto or Gomez, she grabs Osamu's hand and says she wants to drown in the lake with him. Nobody can believe their ears, especially Annette, who collapses to the ground. Charlotte goes on to explain her reasons, saying that after talking with Osamu last night, she thought long and hard about who to choose, and that made her realize something. At first, she was leaning towards picking Otto, because he always sang to her when she was feeling down. But now she remembers he'd sing to her even when she wasn't sad. He was even singing last night, and he never said he was in love with her, so he probably just wanted to perform his latest song for someone. And Charlotte happened to be there to listen. And as for Gomez, he's a no-go because he stinks something fierce. The king straight up be asking Charlotte to think again and choose a damn husband. But that's some crazy ass shit to worry about because she already said she wanna die with Osamu. Charlotte ain't taking none of that and snaps back at Thomas, telling him it was a dumbass move to force her into marrying someone without even asking for her opinion. Like, she never even wanted to marry in the first place. Thomas never took a moment to consider her damn feelings. But Osamu, he actually gave a damn about what she thought and respected her decision. Now Osamu gets why Charlotte picked his ass. But before he can respond, Gomez takes off his helmet and says he never would have thought his cover would get blown because of his stench. Then he transforms to his true form as a servant of the Dark Lord, and starts spilling that he planned to snatch up this kingdom by becoming its king and handing it over to the Dark Lord. But that shit's all ruined now that Charlotte saw through his disguise. Osamu looks at Charlotte and asks if she figured out Gomez was a freaking demon, but she ain't got a freaking clue. She just said he stank because he really does stink. That means Gomez blew his cover for no good reason. But he ain't ready to admit he messed up. Now that his cover's blown, he says he'll just kill them all. This is the kind of situation where a badass priestess would be hella useful. But she still knocked the hell out. Tama tries to wake her up while Gomez is busy dealing with the guards. But damn, the guards ain't lasting long, so Tama has gotta grab Annette's body and bounce to avoid getting squashed by a freaking pillar. Since Annette won't be waking up anytime soon, Tama takes matters into her own hands and starts throwing down with Gomez. She's level 14, so she should be able to hold her own in a fight, and since she'll go against him, Otto offers to play her a song because he's rocking at level 89. Normally, it would give her a boost, but turns out Otto's just playing his freshest track, and it ain't got no special effects. But Osamu seems to be liking that hood classic song. Tama ain't got no other choice but to start whooping ass on her own. As Gomez charges at her, Tama ducks and lands a kick straight to his face. She follows it up with a cat punch, but it doesn't do much damage to Gomez, so he sends Tama flying in return. He then says he's going to put everything into his next attack and tear Tama to shreds. But before he can do that, Osamu grabs his attention and asks Gomez to eliminate him and Charlotte first. Gomez thinks Osamu's playing around, but Osamu tells him that now that Charlotte's free from her dumbass father's grip, her first wish is to go out with a bang alongside Osamu. And Osamu ain't one to pass up a chance to die, so he asks Gomez to do him this favor. Gomez agrees to off him, but he says after that he's gonna take out the king and burn the whole damn city to the ground, taking out everyone in it. Osamu doesn't give a damn about what Gomez does because he'll be dead by then anyway. But Charlotte's starting to have second thoughts about biting the dust. As Gomez charges at them, she tells Osamu that she can't let herself die just yet because she wants to stay alive and protect the kingdom. Osamu's glad to hear that Charlotte finally knows what she really wants. So since she wants to stay alive, he pushes her out of harm's way and takes the full brunt of the attack himself as Gomez keeps charging straight at Osamu. Charlotte tries to convince him not to get himself impaled, but luckily right at that moment, Anna wakes up and uses her power to create a shield of light to protect Osamu from Gomez's strike. She's vowed to never let Osamu die as long as she's by his side. So as Gomez tries to break through her shield, he ends up shattering his damn horns in the process. Now that Gomez is defenseless, Tama lands a blow that sends him flying through the castle wall and into the freaking lake. Both Tama and Annette are relieved they made it through, and since Anna really came through for Tama, Tama feels the need to show her some appreciation. Annette also thanks Tama for her help, and the two of them seem to be getting along a whole lot better now. And Otto is still here, playing his heart out like he doesn't have a care in the world. Charlotte's got a lot to process after that crazy incident. But then her dad rushes up to her, begging for forgiveness for not giving a damn about her feelings before. Osamu was right about Thomas not being fit to be king, and now Thomas realizes he ain't even fit to be Charlotte's father. So he sincerely asks Charlotte if she's willing to forgive him. Charlotte gets down and tells her old man that she forgives him. And from now on, she wants to have a lot of talks with him about the future of this kingdom and their own selves. Thomas is mad happy that he made amends with Charlotte, and Charlotte's thrilled her pops finally gets where she's coming from. But all Osamu can think about is how Annette and Tama messed up his perfect chance for a game over. A while later, Thomas admits he ain't cut out to rule the kingdom, so he gives up the throne to Charlotte, who's now doing everything in her power to keep the kingdom safe. And Otto's still cooking up tunes because he ain't got nothing better to do. Meanwhile, Annette and Tama are busy hauling Osamu's coffin to their next stop, chatting about how bold it was for Charlotte to become queen at 16, but they're sure it's gonna work out somehow. Osamu pops out of the coffin and says what really matters is that Charlotte made the decision for herself and she's standing by it. And that's something Osamu finds beautiful. After dragging Osamu around for a long time, Tama asks Annette if they can chill because she's beat. They've put some serious miles behind them, so Annette figures it's cool to take a breather. Once they stop, Osamu cracks open the coffin and wonders if it's food time yet. Annette offers him some bread, But this dude Osamu's all about that boiled tofu, so if she ain't got any, he's just gonna go back to sleep. After the break, Tama asks how much longer till they hit the house. And since Annette's holding the map, she says it looks like we got a few more days before they reach her hometown. But before that, Annette asks to make a stop at This Is Waitin' Temple. Tama ain't care about the delay, but she asks why Annette needs to go there, prompting her to start explaining the isekai process. Usually, peeps from other worlds come into this realm through one of 4 temples and then head off to battle the Dark Lord. But since Osamu's mission is to find Sachin instead of taking down the Dark Lord, Annette wants to check out the temples to see if they can dig up any info on where Sachin's at. But if luck ain't on their side, they might have to globe-trot their way around. But Annette's all in, ready to ditch it all for Osamu. Real talk, she ain't want Osamu going toe-to-toe with the Dark Lord, even though it's her job to convince folks to do just that. She's just looking out for Osamu, not trying to see him in harm's way. Tama calls her out, saying she's smitten with Osamu. Annette denies any impure intentions, even if it's painfully obvious at this point. She claims Osamu breathed new life into her work when she was feeling burnt out, so now she's on a mission to help him find his missing person. That's all. Tama asks if that means Annette would be cool if she found out Sachin was actually Osamu's lover or something. Even though the thought hurts, Annette still wants to see it for herself. By the way, Tama's wondering if Annette can even roll into This Is Waitin' Temple since she dipped out on her job for this road trip. Annette ain't sweating it because she's tight with the head honcho at This Is Waitin' Temple, and it ain't like she ghosted her work either. She had her familiars drop off her official resignation letter for her, and coincidentally, that same familiar is back and munching on Osamu's head. After patching up Osamu, Annette gripes about her sidekick always stirring up trouble, and now that she's vocalizing it, she's realizing it was a mistake letting that thing handle the delivery of her resignation letter. Her suspicions hit the bullseye when her familiar vomits her letter, making it seem like she ghosted her work without a heads up, and she's pointing fingers straight at the familiar. Watching the familiar fail so hard at its one job lights up Osamu's face with a smile, seeing as he's a bit of a failure himself. So he names it Milos, and Milos takes an instant liking to Osamu. But Osamu ain't really in the market for a pet, so he just dips back into his coffin. Meanwhile, Annette's losing it over bailing on her job without notice, knowing the temple's gonna shut down her unemployment claim later. Right then, Milos starts acting sketchy and soon bolts, signaling something's off. But it ain't until a dragon swoops down from the peak that they connect the dots on what Milos was trying to warn them about. A dragon ranks as the baddest beast around, leaving Annette clueless on how to handle it. But before the dragon goes berserk, a chick pops up behind Annette and Tama, commanding Kohaden to stop attacking random people. The chick then strolls up to the dragon, giving it a pet, leaving Annette and Tama dumbfounded. They've never seen anyone tame a dragon, so they ask who she is, but she just turns to them, saying the area's crawling with monsters, warning them to leave before they get hurt, and seems like one of their crewmates already bit the dust. Annette apologizes for the mix-up and clarifies that Osamu's still kicking. He's just a quirky otherworlder who's into napping in a coffin. The moment the chick learns Osamu's not from around here, a switch flips in her head, tossing off her cloak to reveal she's a dragon girl, vowing to wipe out all the otherworlders. The sheer power radiating from her is off the charts, so when she zaps a blast their way, Annette barely manages to block it for a hot second with her shield. But her shield ain't cutting it as the blast still packs a punch. They are left scattered on the ground, realizing this dragon chick's power is on a whole another level. Still, they ain't backing down when it comes to protecting Osamu, so they rise up ready to throw hands once again. But this dragon girl ain't having none of their interference, so she brings down heavy pressure, forcing them back to the floor. While they're pinned, she stands over them, letting Annette peep the mark on her neck. A mark Annette knows is that of the wrathful Dark Lord. This Dark Lord's about to end Annette and Tama. But before she can do the deed, Osamu steps up, telling her to chill with the violence towards the others. He tells her she's got beef with folks from other worlds, and that means the one she's after is him. So Osamu tells her she can do whatever she pleases to him, and since he ain't resisting, the Dark Lord agrees to leave the others be. In a split second, she punches right through Osamu's chest. As he hits the floor, this Dark Lord declares herself as Waldelia, telling Osamu to rest in peace forever. But as she's bouncing, Osamu gets back up, laughing at the fact she actually stabbed him. He can sense the hate in her, because he once felt the same, even had thoughts of stabbing someone. Dude went as far as penning a threatening letter back in the day, so he knows how it feels to be consumed by hate. Waldelia's getting spooked now, but Osamu keeps pushing closer and touches her cheek. Dropping the dying man charm, he says he's down to hear her story. But Waldelia ain't falling for his game that easy. She calls for her ride Kohaden to scoop her before things escalate. Once she dips, Osamu hits the ground again, because his chest wound is still wide open. But Milos ain't ghosting just yet, finally pulling his weight and hauling them to the temple. Asha sees Annette's messed up, rushing to her side. But Annette asks her to take care of Osamu first because he's in worse shape. Asha sees it's really bad, so she calls for every potion and priest available to help Osamu recover. The next day rolls around, and Osamu's back on his feet. But he ain't cool with that, so the first move he pulls is snagging a bottle of poison to drink. While he's on that mission, Annette gives props to Asha for all her help and promises to return the favor down the line. Annette then drops a question about this otherworlder named Sachin to Asha, but Asha's drawing a blank on that name. Asha figures Sachin must be posted up at some other temple. More importantly, Asha asks Annette why she's suddenly rolling with an otherworlder. She was shocked when she heard Annette bailed on her work. But deep down, she's low-key relieved because she knew Annette was too soft-hearted for that line of work. But Asha ain't down with Annette teaming up with an otherworlder because she's seen firsthand that most of them are just shady characters. These folks get divine gifts to take down the Dark Lord, but they all call their gifts as overpowered skills and use them for dumb shit like starting a failing rap career. One of these jokers is called Kitaro, and he was unfortunately given the power to destroy the world's economy by mass-producing gold coins like crazy. He tries to charm the girls by offering to buy them whatever they want in exchange for a good time. But Asha ain't having it. She tosses his gold right back to his face and tells him to bounce because she's in the middle of a serious chat. Kitaro was a headache, but he kinda proved his own point that otherworlders aren't good people. Annette tries to vouch for Osamu, claiming he's not cut from the same cloth as the rest of them. But Asha ain't buying it because Osamu's vibes scream trouble. Asha warns Annette that sticking by Osamu will lead to ruin. But Annette stands firm that Osamu ain't a bad influence because she's seen herself change for the better since linking up with him. But Annette's defense about Osamu being a positive force takes a hit when he rolls up asking for cash to score drugs, and she gladly hands him whatever he needs. Asha starts thinking Annette might be too deep in the mix if she's already this tied to Osamu. Asha's at least curious about Osamu's gift, but she's thrown for a loop when Annette spills that Osamu ain't got no gift at all. Even though he ain't got no gift, Osamu still put himself on the line to shield Annette and Tama from the Dark Lord. But this news hits Asha even harder because the Dark Lord supposedly bit the dust 7 days back at the hands of some otherworlders. Next thing you know, we're peeping the throne all stained up from the former Dark Lord's blood, with the otherworlder who took him out chilling on it. Meanwhile, Waldelia's lurking in the shadows, swearing to avenge her old man's death. Later on, Annette links up with Tama and drops the bomb that the Dark Lord got taken out a week back. Asha got wind of it from the church recently, and it's a dope deal because it means peace might finally be settling over Zauberberg. But if the Dark Lord's really dead, then who was trying to off her earlier? Annette ain't got the answer to that one. And now that Tama's thinking it over, didn't Osamu roll up 7 days ago too? If the Dark Lord was already done for by then, why'd they still bring Osamu into the mix? Right then, Osamu tears up his notes and falls on the floor. So Tama's checking in on what's wrong with him this time. He spills that he's been struggling to write all the craziness that's gone down since he touched down in this world. Annette asks if he wrote anything about her, but Osamu admits he didn't jot a single word about her. If anything, he felt a burst of inspiration after crossing paths with Waldelia, hoping for that same spark to ignite creativity again. But Tama says she's not going to do any dangerous shit with him. Annette suggests they all dip into town to unwind, and with her future with Osamu in mind, there's a few things she wants to snag for him. Once they hit the town, Annette scoops up a heavy set of armor for Osamu to keep him safe and sound. And Osamu ain't tripping because the snug fit reminds him of his coffin. With Osamu locked in tight, Annette and Tama jet off to do some more shopping. So Annette warns Osamu to stay put while they're out. A while later, Asha's walking through town when she spots a crew of kids gathered around a massive suit of armor, and she's shocked to find Osamu snugly sitting inside. Brushing off the curiosity about why he's rocking that heavy gear, Asha drops the bomb that she's got something to chat with Osamu about. She lays it down that from here on out, Annette's leaving with her because she's convinced sticking with Osamu will only lead to misery. Asha orders Osamu to cut ties with Annette immediately, but Osamu just flashes a smile and tells her that it's Annette's call whether she stays with him or not. Asha can't make that call for her. Plus, how can Asha be so certain Osamu's gonna bring Annette down when she knows any shit about him? And just because he's an otherworlder, Asha's jumping to conclusions that Annette's better off without him. Right then, Asha catches a weird sound, and as she goes to check it out, She catches Kotaro bringing in another otherworlder called Suzuki to the scene. Suzuki spills to the crowd that the Dark Lord finally got taken down. So the whole crew starts cheering for the otherworlders who set them free from the Dark Lord's grip. But Suzuki corrects them because he ain't calling it freedom. It's more like they got a new boss in town. He declares that from now on, the otherworlders are running the show, and he's taking charge of the town. So he demands everyone to bow down to him. Just then, Kotaro spots Annette and calls her out for being one of the elves who smacked his face with coins. So Suzuki jumps up and starts barking at her for laying a hand on an otherworlder, and he's making it crystal clear that she won't be pulling a stunt like that again. After placing his hand on Annette's head, Suzuki activates his skill, and within moments, Annette's eyes go dark as she falls completely under his control. Tama notices something seriously wrong, and realizing Suzuki has messed with Annette, so she grabs Kotaro by the jacket and demands to know what happened. Kotaro just smirks and tells her there's nothing she can do now that Suzuki's skill is in play, and he breaks it down that anyone Suzuki touches becomes his mindless puppet. Tama is furious and threatens to beat Kotaro senselessly until he gets Suzuki to fix Annette. But before Tama can even lay a finger on Kotaro, Suzuki casually places his hand on her head and turns her into another obedient puppet. Things are getting way out of hand. Then Usha finally shows up, furious at Suzuki for abusing his powers. She taught him to use his abilities for good, not to enslave people. Suzuki, however, couldn't care less about Usha's disapproval, because he's the one holding all the cards now. Since Usha and the townsfolk are trying to oppose him, he decides to completely wreck the town to make an example out of it. He plans to rebuild it as a fortress where no one will dare challenge him again. Before he leaves, he informs Usha that he'll be taking over her church and turning it into his new castle. Under Suzuki's orders, his attack dogs go wild, demolishing the town. Even Tama, now under Suzuki's control, joins in the destruction, taking her anger out on the suit of armor that Osamu had been stuffed into earlier. Osamu, however, isn't even bothered by Tama's rampage. He actually finds it pretty hilarious that Annette was right about the armor being a good idea for emergencies like this. Eventually, Tama's relentless punches crack the armor open, but in the chaos, she ends up launching the helmet right into her own face, knocking her out cold instantly. Osamu is now free from the armor, and with Tama out cold on the ground, he does the only thing he can think of. He stuffs her into a barrel to make sure she doesn't cause any more trouble. After sorting that out, Usha comes crashing into the building next to him. For once, she's actually relieved to see Osamu's face, but she still sticks to her earlier statements about Suzuki being a prime example of what otherworlders are like. Suzuki didn't just use his gift for his own selfish desires. His greed has made him a real danger to society. It's clear that the power from his gift must have gone straight to his head, because he wasn't like this when he first showed up in this world. Back then, he was a shy, weak-willed guy, but now he's turned into a full-blown monster. Hearing Usha talk about Suzuki's fall from grace sparks a new fire in Osamu. He asks Usha where Suzuki is, and she tells him Suzuki should be at the church. So Osamu asks Usha to keep an eye on Tama while he goes to confront Suzuki. Usha warns him that it's insane to go after a hero without a gift of his own, but Osamu insists, saying he wants to write about Suzuki's story. Seeing how determined he is, Usha agrees to go with him to keep him safe. When they reach the church doors, Osamu is pumped. But Usha can't understand how he's so chill in this situation. He's seen what Suzuki's gift can do, so he should know he's at a serious disadvantage in a straight-up fight. If he barges in without a plan, she tells him he'll be shredded by Suzuki's beasts. But before she can say more, Osamu pulls out a bottle of poison from his sleeve. Usha is impressed, thinking Osamu plans to use the poison on the beasts, but to her shock, he chugs the whole bottle in one go. With the poison out of the picture, Usha gets down on all fours, saying they'll have to use the back door. But Osamu ignores her and heads straight through the front door. Osamu greets Suzuki and tells him he's interested in writing a novel about his story. Suzuki, thinking Osamu is a fan wanting to document his heroic deeds, is pleased. But Osamu drops the bombshell that the novel he wants to write is about a loser who was given way more power than he deserved and ended up becoming a total jerk. Suzuki's feeling massively disrespected, so he orders his pack of dogs to tear Osamu apart. Osamu's just standing there like he's on vacation, so Usha jumps in to defend him. She casts a spell that sends lasers right into the dogs' heads, but she's getting overwhelmed, and Suzuki's remaining beasts start launching fireballs at Osamu. With Usha out of commission, it's looking like Osamu's about to have a very bad day. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, the fireballs get deflected by a floating helmet and fly right back at Suzuki. Turns out, Milos is using the helmet to deflect the fireballs because the armor's got this nifty trick of bouncing off low-level spells. Kotaro's freaking out, realizing that Osamu's got some serious plot armor going on. But Suzuki's not sweating it. He's got one last trick up his sleeve. Suzuki orders his great wolf to attack Osamu. As the wolf bites into him, it starts to decay and collapses. Usha's in disbelief that the poison Osamu drank actually saved them. And Kotaro is now 100% convinced that Suzuki can't beat Osamu's plot armor, so he takes his potato-like head and runs away. Suzuki grudgingly admits that Osamu's tougher than he thought, but he's not done yet. He calls out Annette to come out and finish the job. Annette, under Suzuki's control, charges at Usha with a dagger and nearly stabs her. Usha, not wanting to fight Annette, figures it's best to retreat for now. But Osamu's not having any of that. He believes Annette's strong enough to shake off the mind control. Suzuki laughs, saying his mind control is unbeatable and that Annette's doomed to be his slave for life. Still, Osamu is confident Annette can overcome it. He walks right up to her and tells her she doesn't have to obey Suzuki's orders. It seems Osamu's words are getting through because Annette starts hesitating, trying to resist stabbing him. Suzuki's fuming, using all his power to force her hand, but Annette, through sheer willpower and a flashback, manages to break free of the brainwashing by stabbing herself in the leg. The pain snaps her out of it, and she collapses into Osamu's arms. With Annette back to her old self, Osamu asks Usha to treat her leg wound. Usha starts to realize she might have misjudged Osamu as a person. Suzuki's realizing his ability isn't all-powerful anymore, and he's starting to sweat, knowing he's going to be held accountable for all his war crime. He's freaking out, knowing he's about to get served some serious justice from all the people he's messed with. He's looking around, desperate for a knife to end it all. But just as he's about to give himself to the afterlife, Osamu swoops in to stop him. Not because he gives a damn about Suzuki's life, but because he's not done with his story yet. He wants Suzuki to spill everything about his past life. So with nothing left to lose, Suzuki starts pouring out his backstory. Suzuki was just your average high school kid, constantly bullied by the bigger guys. He was super timid and weak, and never stood up for himself. He even thought about jumping off a roof to escape his bullies, but chickened out in the end. One day, a drunk old man bumped into him and started shouting like it was Suzuki's fault. Suzuki was pissed, but still didn't have the guts to fight back. So he was basically a walking target for truck cum. Next thing he knows, he's yanked into this world and greeted by Usha as the so-called hero supposed to take down the demon lord. From there, he was left to fend for himself, grinding his way through battles with wolves and eventually turning them into his loyal minions. With his new crew, he took down some heavy-duty monsters. He thought things were finally looking up for him, but as he walked through the town, he realized that even with all his new power, people still treated him like a nobody, just like back on Earth. The thought of getting bullied again pushed him to his breaking point. He'd suffered endless torment on Earth, and now he's being hailed as a hero here. But he had no real motivation to save this new world or play the hero role. Even when he tried to act like a villain, he couldn't pull it off. Osamu's digging Suzuki's story because it wraps up his novel nicely. It's about a pitiful guy who could never be a true hero, stuck as a villain due to his own weakness and outcast no matter where he goes. So Osamu decides to call the novel Isekai Shikaku, as he names it. Pages from the novel start floating around Suzuki, making it all kinds of surreal. Then Osamu thanks Suzuki for the story, saying it helped him finally write something he's actually cool with. But he's still not calling it a masterpiece, so he grabs a page from the novel and rips it to shreds. As he does this, a magic circle pops up beneath Suzuki. Usha and Annette recognize it as the summoning circle they used to bring heroes to this world, but this time, it's working in reverse. In a flash of light, Suzuki is sent back to Earth. Annette checks Osamu's status screen, and to her shock, sees he now has a gift that wasn't there before. Usha figures it must be some special skill that only works against otherworlders. This means Osamu was brought here specifically to deal with otherworlders. After Suzuki vanishes, Osamu collapses, bummed that he couldn't create the masterpiece he was aiming for. He's completely unaware of the power his writing has, and he starts wondering what happened to Suzuki. With Suzuki gone, all the monsters under his control chill out and start leaving the town. Tama finally gets herself out of the barrel, but she's scratching her head, not even sure why she was in there in the first place. With everything going back to normal, Usha figures Osamu deserves a reward for saving the town from Suzuki. So at his request, she has a customized coffin made for him. Annette thanks Usha for all her help. But before she heads out, Usha wants to have a serious talk with her. She says it's likely Osamu is a huge hero in this world, which means traveling with him is going to be insanely dangerous. But Usha's seen Annette's willpower and thinks she can handle whatever comes her way. So she asks Annette to back up Osamu as best as she can. After that, the group is set to continue their journey, with Tama and Annette grabbing the ropes to haul Osamu's coffin. Before they leave, Usha has one more question for Osamu. She's been mulling over Suzuki's downfall. Suzuki was a decent guy before he got his powers and came to this world, so Usha wonders if he turned bad just because he was summoned. Osamu's got a different take. He says while Suzuki's story as a hero here is done, his story back on Earth is still in play. It's up to him to turn things around and make a difference. And then we see Suzuki on Earth after he got a job and decided to change his life for the better. After Osamu and the gang left, Usher rolled up to the church headquarters to fill them in on what happened. When she arrives, she spots her co-worker, Wolf, sitting around and drinking away his problems. She's pretty shocked he's already hitting the bottle in the morning, but Wolf shrugged it off, saying his job was way more stressful than hers. While Usha deals with people like herself, Wolf has to handle dwarves, and according to him, dwarves smell absolutely awful. Just as Wolf is about to keep ragging on dwarves, Elton walks in and calls him out. He says it's not cool for Wolf to be spewing racist crap while he's on the clock, especially since he's a bishop. Wolf gives a half-hearted apology, but throws some shade at Elton for being a goblin bishop, considering most bishops are elves. Elton isn't fazed and tells Wolf he's acting worse than the dwarves he hates so much. This really sets Wolf off, and he dares Elton to handle dwarves all day and see if he doesn't become a racist too. Right then, Cardinal Miller shows up and tells them to cut the crap and sit down so they can get the meeting going. When the meeting starts, Miller apologizes for dragging everyone here on short notice. He wants to kick things off with updates from each region, but notices someone's missing. Before he can say much more, the missing bishop stumbles in and falls in front of everyone. They're all clueless about who this new person is, so Miller introduces her as the new bishop of the Western Temple, taking over after Annette bailed on her job. They all take their seats around the big conference table, and Cardinal Miller kicks things off, asking the bishops to start with their reports. First up is Aria, who's filling in for Annette. She introduces herself and says not much has happened in her region recently. But Miller chimes in, mentioning that he heard Princess Charlotte recently took over the throne, which is pretty significant. Aria scrambles to apologize for forgetting that detail, clearly worried about making a bad impression. But Elton, the Goblin Bishop, interrupts and starts giving his update. He reports that things in his region have been peaceful lately, and there's not much to add. Everything's been calm, so he doesn't have any major news. Wolf goes next and talks about his territory, which is way out in the sticks. He explains that while his region is generally stable, there are occasional squabbles with the dwarves, but he assures everyone that these conflicts are pretty normal and nothing to be overly concerned about. When Usha takes her turn, she brings some serious news. An Otherworlder recently went on a rampage in her region and wrecked half of the town of Vale. She's working hard to get the town back to normal, but that's not even the biggest issue. The main reason Miller called this meeting is to address the situation with the Otherworlders. As he mentioned last week, a group of Otherworlders took down the wrathful Dark Lord. Because of this, the Pope has decided to seal the magic circles that link their world to the others and put Truck Q on indefinite paid leave. Elton is relieved that the Dark Lord is out of the picture, but is still worried. The 7 Otherworlders who defeated him have claimed his former territory and announced they're going to turn Zauberberg into their idea of a perfect utopia. This whole situation is shaping up to be nothing short of a declaration of war, and it's got the Pope seriously shaken. The Otherworlders were initially seen as divine saviors, angels sent from above to rescue this world from doom. The Pope had a genuine affection for them and saw them as key allies, but now it seems they've turned against him, which is a huge blow. The Church is bracing itself for an imminent threat, and it's not just the Otherworlders they have to worry about. There's also the chaos they've been spreading across various regions and the mysterious disappearance of the Dark Lord's daughter from his fortress. It's hard to believe that the Otherworlders, who were once the Church's greatest allies, are now its biggest adversaries. If they join forces, they could end up being a far greater threat than the Dark Lord ever was. Arya is understandably anxious about how they'll tackle such formidable opponents. However, Usha might have a potential solution, and she reveals to the group that there's an Otherworlder with a unique ability, one that allows him to send Otherworlders back to their own world. This revelation shocks everyone, but if Usha's theory holds water, then Osamu's gift might just be the key to sending these invaders back where they came from. Just as they're digesting this news, the Pope makes a surprise appearance. His arrival catches everyone off guard, but he's visibly relieved to hear about this potential solution. He asks Usha to provide more details about this person with the remarkable ability. Meanwhile, within the Dark Lord's former domain, 2 of the 7 otherworlders who helped defeat him are staying behind in the castle. The remaining 5 have dispersed to different regions, each intent on claiming new territories for their emerging empire, and the 2 left behind are eagerly watching to see how things will unfold. Back with Osamu and the others, they finally reach their destination. Tama is thrilled at the prospect of a good night's sleep in a real bed, but then she gets a system notification thanks to all the coughing and hauling she's been doing. Her level has jumped to 17. Leveling up is usually great news, but Tama's less than thrilled about how it came about. Then Annette decides they should start by finding an inn for the night. But then a voice pipes up, saying there's a good spot down the road. Annette looks up and sees a little kid perched on a signpost. He offers to give her some tips on navigating the town since she's new here. The kid spills that there's a hero dispatch service in town, where otherworlders team up with groups that aren't so confident in their skills. They basically make sure the mission goes smoothly and everyone stays safe. The kid says he came up with the idea himself, but as soon as he mentions otherworlders, Tama's face goes pale. She's got flashbacks of what Kotaro and Suzuki pulled, so she's not interested at all. The kid's confused why Tama hates otherworlders so much, especially since they're the ones who saved the world. But he moves on and offers to introduce them to an otherworlders right away, but for a small fee of course. He asks for 40,000 Geniko for the intro, but Tama's not having it, since she doesn't want to spend that much money. Annette, on the other hand, is all about spending that cash if it means getting a strong hero to keep Osamu safe. The kid thinks she's talking about guarding a coffin, so he starts going off about how the dead guy would probably appreciate having his body protected. Just then, Osamu pops out of the coffin and tells the kid he's not dead yet, though he kinda wishes he were. The kid freaks out, but Tama reassures him that, despite how he looks, Osamu's also a hero. The kid's not convinced though, and he snatches the money from Annette and says he'll bring the hero to their inn later tonight. Tama's still skeptical, but she admits having a strong hero on their team would be great since she wouldn't have to lug the coffin around anymore. But Annette, on the other hand, actually enjoys pulling the coffin. Later that night, Annette and the others are hanging out at the inn, waiting for Nerm to show up like he promised. But then Osamu tells Annette straight up that the kid isn't coming, and that she's been scammed. The innkeeper overhears and asks if they're waiting for a kid named Nerm. When Annette confirms, the innkeeper breaks it to them that Nerm is known around town as a young con artist. He's never even met a hero, so there's no way he could introduce Annette to one like he claimed. Annette's devastated about losing 40,000 Geniko, and Tama tries to calm her down. Osamu's curious about Nerm, so the innkeeper explains that Nerm is an orphan who just showed up in town one day and has been scamming unsuspecting travelers ever since. He's a pain for the town, but sometimes the innkeeper feels sorry for him since he's on his own with no one to set him straight. Meanwhile, Nerm is chilling under a bridge, staring at the pile of cash he scammed. But suddenly, he gets grabbed by some unknown kidnappers. They drag him to an abandoned shed and start rummaging through his stash of ill-gotten gains. Nerm asks them what they plan to do with him, and the 3 guys have some seriously sketchy vibes going on. Nerm tries to bluff his way out, claiming his hero buddy will get revenge if they hurt him. The guys aren't buying it though they know Nerm's never met a hero, and as a matter of fact, they're heroes themselves. One of them has this crazy gift that lets him summon a powerful crossbow. Since Nerm's been using the hero name to scam people, this otherworlder decides he's going to punish him with an arrow to the head. Nerm is stunned that the heroes he looked up to are actually scumbags, but he comes to terms with it and braces for his end. Just as the bowman is about to shoot, Osamu shows up, pushes the guy's hand, and redirects the arrow right into the knee of the metal guy standing next to him. Osamu confronts the villains, telling them they have no right to call themselves heroes when they act so despicably. His words, however, fall on deaf ears, as one of the villains with glowing eyes uses his skill to analyze Osamu. To everyone's shock, he discovers that Osamu is an otherworlder as well. This revelation puts everyone on edge, as they are unsure of Osamu's powers. Upon closer inspection, the appraiser realizes that Osamu is critically injured, with only 1 point of HP remaining and currently poisoned. This discovery initially calms the bowman, who now believes he can easily defeat Osamu. But as soon as Osamu hears the bowman's threat to end him, his interest is piqued, and he strides purposefully towards them. The appraiser starts to panic as Osamu's health stats begin to rise rapidly, and Osamu taunts the bowman to shoot him straight in the heart. Believing this to be a trap, the bowman decides to retreat, fleeing with his companions. As the villains make their escape, Osamu is left feeling disheartened because he had hoped they would finish him off. Nerm, witnessing the confrontation, asks Osamu if he is a hero. Osamu dismisses the notion, saying he's far from noble. Instead, he describes himself as just a man trying to navigate the harsh world of adults. He encourages Nurm to preserve his innocence a bit longer before he too becomes as corrupted as those otherworlders he despises. Inspired by Osamu's words, Nurm feels a sense of hope. But this quickly turns to panic when he realizes that Osamu has left him tied up and is now out of sight, meaning he'll be stuck here all night. The following morning, as Osamu and the others prepare to leave town and continue their journey, Tama notices Osamu's drowsy demeanor and asks if he managed to sleep well. Annette, recalling that Osamu had slipped away the previous night without saying where he was going, questions him about whether he spent the night with someone. Osamu only remarks that he had an eventful night, leading Annette to worry that another woman might have been involved, causing her to sob over the potential loss of Osamu's affections to someone else. Their discussion is interrupted by Nurm, who insists they need to hurry up and get moving. Tama then recognizes him and immediately demands that he return the money they paid him for the false promise of introducing a hero. Nurm insists he did not lie, claiming that he is indeed the hero he promised, although he admits he isn't particularly strong. The scene shifts to the group on their journey, where Osamu suddenly hears an announcement in his head that he's discovered a landmark called Grun Castle. The voice makes him want to crawl into a hole and die, and Nurm notices his distress, and he is a bit concerned. Nurm mentions it to the others, but they brush it off. This sort of thing has become all too common. Tama then casually asks Nurm to take her place dragging the coffin. Nurm isn't thrilled, but he steps in anyway, and soon the city of Grun comes into view. As they approach the gates, they spot an inspection checkpoint. Tama confidently assures them she can get them through, claiming she's somewhat of a local celebrity. But as soon as the guards recognize her, they surround the group and promptly arrest them. The scene cuts to them in a dank dungeon, where Annette is praying to God for deliverance. But it's clear that divine intervention isn't coming. Nurm mentions that the guards have taken Tama to another cell and starts speculating that they might be in this mess because of her. He even wonders if Tama had the guts to steal from royalty or commit some other heinous crime. Annette, loyal as ever, defends Tama, insisting she's no thieving cat. Meanwhile, Osamu, in his twisted way, is getting excited about the possibility of execution, pondering all the different ways they might be put to death. Nurm tries to stay practical and suggests they escape, even if it means leaving Tama behind. He begins picking the lock, much to Annette's dismay, who believes a valiant warrior shouldn't be skilled in such dubious arts. This depresses Nurm, while Osamu angrily laments that his dreams of a grand execution are being dashed. All the noise they're making attracts the guards, who quickly discover their escape attempt and bind them with ropes. Osamu, still weirdly optimistic, asks if they're going to be executed, and the guards can't help but think he's a total creep for actually being happy about it. Later, Osamu and the others are brought before King Siberian. The minister Briard informs them they'll be executed for their crimes. Annette and Nurm are baffled, having no idea what crimes they're being accused of. The king then reveals that they're being sentenced for kidnapping his daughter Matilda, and it's a crime worthy of execution in his eyes. Tama then strides into the throne room and immediately clears the air, telling her father that she wasn't kidnapped. The twist is that she's actually the princess of this nation, and Tama explains that she's been traveling to different countries to hone her martial arts skills, and that she met the group during her journey. She then turns to Annette, asking her to back up her story. Realizing that Tama is royalty, Annette quickly switches gears, sucking up to her and speaking in a formal tone, confirming everything Tama said. Tama, though, tells her to chill and not to treat her any differently, and then asks her father to release her friend. The king, however, isn't budging that easily, and says that he'll only let them go if she agrees to do as he says. Specifically, he wants her to swear to stop her reckless adventures and start acting like the royal she is, just like her late mother. Tama isn't thrilled with this at all, but considering her friend's safety, she reluctantly agrees to her father's terms. She tells her friends that this is where their journey together ends and leaves, thanking them for everything. Osamu and the others are then released, and we catch up with them later at a tavern. Nurm is devouring food like there's no tomorrow, while Osamu, still hung up on missing out on his grand execution fantasy, swallows a bunch of poison pills in a depressed daze. Nurm remarks on how shocked he was to learn that Tama is actually a princess, and Annette agrees. She's worried now, realizing she might have been a bit too casual with Tama and hopes she won't get executed for it. Annette muses about how they've been calling her Tama despite her having a beautiful name like Matilda. Overhearing this, a waitress named Fawn chimes in, asking if they know Princess Matilda. She introduces herself as the lady-in-waiting who used to serve the princess and is curious if they're friends with her. Nurm casually informs Fawn that they were traveling with Matilda up until yesterday when the king hauled her back to the castle. He shrugs, saying it's understandable since she's a princess after all. Osamu senses there's more to Tama's life than meets the eye, and he's curious to learn more. He wonders aloud if Fawn can shed some light on Tama's story. He mentions that when he first met Tama, she was trapped by a tree monster, and now she's been confined to the castle by her father. He finds her intriguing, despite her royal status. Annette quickly warns him not to dig into Tama's past, reminding him that she's a princess, while Nurm advises him to stop calling her Tama so casually. But Osamu doesn't care about her title. To him, she'll always be Tama. Hearing his genuine sentiment, Fawn agrees to share Matilda's past. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, Tama reflects on the surprise on Nurm and Annette's faces when they discovered she was a princess. She notes that Osamu in contrast remained his usual self, and she wonders what they're up to now. Just then, she notices a man standing on the roof of the throne room, and suddenly, the roof collapses. The king rushes to see what's happening and finds a man casually sitting on his throne. The man expresses excitement at the thought of tasting demi-woman flesh. The king demands to know who he is, and the man introduces himself as Kaibara, claiming to be one of the 7 heroes who defeated the Dark Lord and saved the world. However, he now goes by the title Fallen Angel of Gluttony, and the king realizes with horror that Kaibara is one of the infamous 7 fallen angels. The king is shocked and wonders why Kaibara has come here, and Kaibara calmly explains that he intends to devour the entire nation. Sensing Kaibara's overwhelming power, the king realizes that he is gifted. The soldiers accompanying the king refuse to let Kaibara have his way and charge at him. But Kaibara, using his gift, summons enormous fangs that devour the soldiers. He chews them thoroughly, but he's unimpressed by their taste, explaining that he's rather particular about what he eats. He then tells the king that he has a preference for the flesh of women, especially the tender meat of a demi-woman. The remaining soldiers are visibly angered by Kaibara's arrogant demeanor, but the king orders them to hold back, and Briard realizes that the king himself is preparing to fight. The king declares that Kaibara won't leave the throne room alive and readies himself for battle. Kaibara is thrilled at the prospect of facing a warrior king and tries to devour him with his monstrous fangs. However, the king skillfully fights off the attack and strikes back with a powerful thunder-based martial arts technique. But to the king's shock, the attack has no effect. Kaibara laughs, explaining that while such a blow would have killed a normal person, his body is currently as tough as steel since he recently devoured a bunch of golems. Unfazed, the king begins to prepare his ultimate technique. Seeing this, Briard realizes that the king intends to eliminate Kaibara rather than capture him. The king confirms this, stating that a bastard like Kaibara doesn't deserve mercy after slaughtering his men, so he vows to destroy him with a single decisive strike. But just as he's about to unleash his attack, Matilda enters the room. Kaibara's eyes light up with twisted excitement as he finally lays eyes on a beautiful demi-woman, and Matilda's heart sinks in terror as she recognizes him as the monster she had sensed before. Determined to fight, she tears her skirt to prepare herself for battle, but her father sternly orders her to stay back, telling her that she can never replace Leon. Back at the tavern, Fawn reveals that Matilda once had a twin brother named Leon, who was the crown prince destined to inherit the throne. With Matilda's kindness and Leon's valor, everyone believed that their nation was headed for a long era of peace. But 10 years ago, tragedy struck when a storm caused a cave-in, killing Prince Leon and the queen on their way back to the castle. The king was devastated by their deaths and fell into a deep depression. Matilda was unable to bear seeing her father so broken, so she made a bold decision. She asked to have her hair cut to look like Leon's and vowed to take her brother's place, hoping to ease her father's pain. But instead of bringing them closer together, this act only deepened the rift between them. Back at the castle, the king tries to warn his daughter that her martial arts skills won't be enough to defeat Kaibara. But Matilda is offended and recklessly charges at him. Kaibara is almost amused and nearly devours her with his twisted gift, but the king intervenes, sacrificing his right arm to save her. Kaibara, curious about the depth of parental love, expresses disappointment, noting that the king won't be able to unleash his ultimate technique with his arm in such a state. To taunt them further, he shows Matilda her father's severed arm in his mouth to enraging her. She attempts another attack, but Briard steps in, knocking her unconscious and swiftly fleeing with her. Frustrated that his meal has escaped, Kaibara decides to save her for later, shifting his focus back to how he should enjoy the king. Meanwhile, back at the tavern, Annette thanks Fawn for sharing Tama's story. Nurm asks Osamu what he's been scribbling, But before he can answer, Briard bursts in, relieved to see Fawn carrying the unconscious Matilda. He reassures them that she's only fainted and explains that they barely escaped with their lives. The castle of Grun has fallen to an evil otherworlder who appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, a loud blast echoes from the direction of the castle, and the citizens of Grun witness their captured king displayed for all to see. Kaibara, now standing before them, introduces himself as their new ruler. With a twisted smile, he assures them that there's no need to worry, promising not to oppress them. Instead, he reveals his true horrifying intentions. He only wants to feast on the flesh of demi-humans, specifically targeting women and children. The men, he says, can continue working as usual. One brave soul hurls a rock at Kaibara, but he's swiftly consumed by the monster. Kaibara, feigning surprise, admits that perhaps it was misleading to claim he wouldn't eat men. Now that they've angered him, he declares that the men will be on the menu too. As panic spreads and the demi-humans attempt to flee, Kaibara coldly informs them that it's pointless. He's already stationed Dark Lord's former minions throughout the town to prevent any escape. With a chilling laugh, he promises to see them all at the dinner table before retreating back into the castle. Osamu is totally hyped by this unexpected twist, thinking Tama is the ultimate tragic heroine. First, she was held captive by her own father, and now she's the princess of a fallen nation. But he knows Tama isn't the type to just roll over and accept this fate, so he urges her to wake up and take control, to show him how her story really plays out. In the meantime, we see Tama dreaming of her mother, who tells her something important to always remember. Tama wakes up suddenly and realizes she's in Fawn's house. She steps outside, surprised to see her friends there, and asks what's going on. Briard breaks the news that Kaibara has taken over the royal capital and is literally trying to eat the citizens. Tama is so furious now and tries to bolt for the castle, but Briard holds her back. She insists she needs to stop Kaibara. But Fawn also steps in, warning her that she doesn't stand a chance, especially since even the king was defeated. Tama, still fired up, points out that her father lost because he was trying to protect her. She feels it's her responsibility to protect the nation in place of her late brother. She's adamant this is her fight, but Annette jumps in, mentioning the tragedy of the Clolone Pass. Fawn's earlier story made her recall the event that claimed the lives of 2 royal family members a decade ago. Annette admits she had no idea that those lost were Tama's mother and brother, but she remembers how the entire country mourned their deaths. Annette continues, saying that this shows just how much the royalty is loved by the people. If they were to lose Tama too, all hope would be lost. She asks Tama to let them handle this fight, hinting that they have a secret weapon for dealing with otherworlders. Osamu then rallies Annette, Nurm, and Milos, telling them it's time to move. As the 4 head off to the castle, Briard looks at Matilda and says she's got some really good friends. The scene cuts to Osamu and the crew at the castle, where they run into 2 ogres guarding the gate. The ogres casually mention that they've been ordered to kill anyone who crosses their path. Annette steps up, ready to fight them solo, but Osamu interrupts, stepping forward with a wild idea. He calmly tells the ogres that they're not here to fight, they're here to be eaten. Osamu explains that he was deeply inspired by the king's speech earlier, revealing that he's always been obsessed with thoughts of death and how he might go out. But it never crossed his mind to be eaten alive, and now he's all in. He even asks the ogres to let the king know that someone eager to be eaten has arrived at the castle. The ogres, baffled, exchange looks, probably thinking Osamu is some kind of deranged freak. Meanwhile, Osamu grows impatient, annoyed that they're delaying his grand exit. Fast forward, and Osamu and the others find themselves locked in a cell yet again. Annette is desperate and prays for divine intervention, but when nothing happens, she begins to lose faith. Osamu is surprisingly calm and tells her to chill out. Death is just part of the plan, but now isn't his time to go, so he turns to Nurm, instructing him to pick the lock. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Briard bringing some soup to Tama back in town, only to find her room empty. Back at the castle, Kaibara is flipping through a register, deciding who to eat first. Then the gatekeeper ogres arrive, informing him about the strange human who actually wants to be eaten. Just then, Tama bursts in after having dealt with the gatekeepers, and Kaibara grins with satisfaction. His meal has come to him willingly. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.